In today's video, I survive 300 days in hardcore Minecraft and start the project of building a massive villager trading hall in my world that can house up to nearly 80 villagers. I also add even more new farms to my area and get myself a brand new beacon. Now with all that said and out of the way, let's get into 300 days in hardcore Minecraft. Day 201, I'm back in my world. I finally loaded it up again, and this time in 1.19. So I did the classic fly around to refamiliarize myself with the area. But while hanging around here, I noticed that I was getting a low frame rate, so I decided to turn my render distance down to 12, and that seemed to fix it for now. If you guys watched last video, you'll also remember that I made this massive gold beacon, but I'm still short 2 beacons. So I decided that the first thing I wanted to do in this video is get those beacons. So I rounded up all my leftover fire resistance potions, and as I started making my way out the door though, I realized that it was thunderstorming. And if you guys remember from last video, I got a channeling trident. So after crafting a lightning rod, I started striking mobs around my area with lightning using my channeling trident. However, my trident doesn't yet have Riptide on, so it was a little bit of a pain to go and collect it back up again. I continued with it nonetheless, missing this creeper here, but the second time around striking him with the lightning. From there, I got him to try and blow up mobs. However, another creeper kind of got to him before he could blow up. So I continued attempting to get mob heads by striking another creeper here, and then I realized that it would be easier to take out my flint and steel and light the creeper myself whenever it was most convenient. I also had a close call with a creeper here while I was busy killing these zombies to get my ender chest back. Anyway, I then got this charged creeper to blow up these 2 zombies here, and I hoped that I had got a head, which, yes, luckily I did. So I continued this process for a little while longer, trying to gather myself a couple of more heads, eventually getting myself a creeper head, and sadly not a skeleton head, but I'll go again for that at a different stage. As you can see in this clip though, the thunderstorm had now finished, so I collected up my trident and made my way back over to my house, where I went into my very unimpressive, call it trophy room, and started adding the heads to the wall. I then made sure to restock on food before mining up my ender chest and making my way over to the nether, where I then made my way over to the Wither Skeleton Fortress. Before starting the collection process though, I made sure to grab myself a couple of fire resistance potions, as well as my looting 3 sword out of my chest, and then I got to collecting Wither Skeleton skulls. So there you go, about a day of collecting Wither Skeleton skulls, and not too many Wither Skeletons later, I had yet another 6 skulls and was happy to start heading home. So I grabbed everything and on the way back decided that I would stop at this treasure bastion that was on the way. I very safely mined in from the bottom and played Speef with the Piglin Brutes. I got some decent stuff for these chests, but nothing crazy, it was just a treasure bastion. After that, I made my way back to my portal where it was nighttime, so I went inside and went to bed. The next day, I started gathering everything that I was gonna need to spawn these withers, as well as craft the beacons afterwards. After gathering everything I was gonna need, I made my way down into the cave and into the strip mine where I always kill the withers. I then mined out a long tunnel, and then decided to go back up to my house and grab a shulker box, as I kind of had a plan. You see, whenever I watch other Minecraft YouTubers, I see them complain so much about how mining Deep Slate is such a pain as you can't insta-mine it. However, I had a plan where, if you punch the wither just like this, he'll follow you in the strip mine and theoretically he would mine up all the cobblestone for you. So, in trying this plan, I discovered that it actually works really well. However, after a while, he did start going a little bit high for my liking, so I decided to just kill him and get rid of him. But I mean, look at this. Look how much deep slate I got, and it was super easy. I just punched a wither. And also, as another added bonus, you will get a decent amount of diamonds every now and again from doing this. Now that I had collected my first nether star, I went ahead and mined another tunnel and did the exact same thing with the second wither, collecting myself a ton of cobble deep slate again, as well as a couple of diamonds along the way. Eventually, after killing him, I got my second nether star, collected up all the deep slate I had grabbed, and went home where I craft my 2 beacons and placed away my deep slate. And here you can really see how much I got. It's really just an insane amount for what sort of time I used. Not even a full day of mining. Well, mining. After that, I made my way over to my gold beacon where I mined up these 2 gold blocks and placed down my new 2 beacons. After they lit, I also used them to give myself jump boost 2 and strength 2 around my area to make myself even more overpowered around here. From here, I noticed that I had a visitor in my yard, so I went over to greet him, but then him and his llamas very suddenly and rudely disappeared. I then made my way over to my iron farm to check how it's doing, and yeah, I don't know what's wrong with this thing. It works very intermittently. But anyway, I wanted to show you guys this. This is pretty much a hole in the corner of my wall. I messed this up in the first 100 days when I built this wall, as I calculated the gaps wrong. So I guess I'm just gonna fix it now, as it's been annoying me. So I went home and gathered a bunch of materials that I was gonna need, and then made my way over to the corner, where I just slapped together a little bit of a wall. It doesn't look quite the same as the rest of the wall, but I don't think it looks too bad, and it definitely looks better than it looked before. Now that I was happy and that was off my conscience, I made my way back over to my house and went inside, where I started gathering everything that I was gonna need to make a very temporary tree, I guess, farm, but kind of more like a tree platform. You'll see what I mean now, as I pretty much just built this square of grass a couple of blocks off the ground so that the pods all wouldn't spread as soon as I grew the mega trees. I then got to growing some of these trees, and this worked pretty well, as I had the haste effect from my beacon, so that was speeding everything up, but it wasn't close enough to the ground where the pods all would be spreading around, causing a mess. So with that being a great success, I took the ton of wood that I had collected and started grabbing some of the cobble deep slate that I had collected earlier with the withers, as well as making my way down into my mine, where I stood close enough to my beacon to be able to insta-mine some stone.
Nice.
After collecting all the stone that I wanted for now, I made my way out of the cave and made sure to collect all the saplings before they despawned. And then I made my way over to my villager breeder, where I pretty much started mining up some of the glass and adding in some wood beams like this, just to decorate the whole thing. I would have liked to have done a time lapse of this, but in the 1.19, at the time of me recording this at least, I couldn't get the replay mod to work as the latest version hadn't been released yet, so I guess I'll just walk you through what I did. I pretty much just built this little roof on the side here to cover the area where the beds were gonna go, and then went around and added more beams to the walls, as well as making these rounded designs with the spruce wood like in my house. I then dug out some windows, and decided to turn the farm off by mining up these beds, just because I kind of had too many villagers for now. Anyway, from there I continued building the house, building this first layer of the roof here, which went pretty smoothly, and then decided to extend the spruce in between, and started building the second layer of the roof to make a cool kind of, I guess, Japanese looking design. This part took way longer, as I pretty much just built the roof and then decided I didn't like it, and then would mine all the stuff up again, and then decide I didn't like it, and I did that for a while, until I got to this, which looks alright. But it was gonna have to do for now, so I added in the windows, and this is it. I think it looks much better than how it looked before. From there I went ahead and collected myself a ton of sugarcane that I then used to craft myself a whole bunch of rockets. After that I then went for a flight and looked back down on my area, which I think is looking pretty good. I then made my way over to my creeper farm, where I went ahead and sat AFK for the next day. While AFKing though, I realized that it was once again thunderstorming, so I grabbed my ender chest and took out my channeling trident as well as my flint and steel. I then had a couple of failed attempts of me trying to get mob heads, like this one here, which very easily could have ended in me popping a totem, or this one here where I struck a creeper and then while getting him to try and blow up the skeletons shot him, so I got a music disc. Anyway, after a bit more trying, I did strike this creeper with lightning that I then punched into the skeleton, which sadly popped the totem, so I made sure to get another one out and ready before I even went to investigate. However, this time I did in fact get a skeleton skull, which was great, obviously useless, but it was nice to have. Not long after that, the thunderstorm also stopped, so I made my way into my creeper farm collection area and collected all the gunpowder I had AFK'd for. From there, I made my way back over to my house, where I then went inside and crafted myself even more rockets and placed the rest of the gunpowder in my ender chest, as well as added my skeleton head to my trophy room. After that, I then made my way over to the nether, and then over to the other portal that took me to the end, where I then made my way through yet another portal into the end. After that, I went up to one of the obsidian towers and started mining myself a whole bunch of obsidian. And by the time I got to the bottom, I had mined a ton of obsidian, but I decided I needed even more. So after collecting up a whole bunch more obsidian, I took that home with me, where I then went ahead and crafted myself some Eyes of Ender, and crafted myself even more ender chests, as I had been running low. I did also put the remainder of my obsidian in my ender chest so I could use it for portals later. From there I crafted myself some bottles that I then filled with water and used to craft myself some potions of night vision. I was doing this as I mentioned in the beginning, I updated this world to 1.19 in this video. so I wanted to go exploring. However, 1.19 removed gamma, so I was gonna need night vision so that I could see in the dark caves. Once they finished brewing, I collected all of them up and made my way over to the nether, and then up through the hole I had made to get onto the nether roof. Once I had gotten up there, I looked around for a bit and decided I was gonna fly off south a couple thousand blocks. While I was flying though, I noticed this like crack in the bedrock just here. I've never seen this before. I don't know, this must be some type of glitch, because it's literally down to netherrack. If you mine through here, you fall into just like a normal biome. So this is kind of weird, but I made sure to mark down the coordinates of it. I also then decided that I was going to build a portal by this thing and go through just so that I could see what's on the other side. So when I went through, I got the subspace bubble achievement and then noticed that I had spawned in a cave. So I decided to mine back up this portal and then started mining my way up to the surface, which took a while. It's 1.19, it's pretty low. I did it also one point break into a water cave and hoped that I could maybe swim out, but I sadly couldn't. So I had to continue mining my way up until eventually I dug into an ocean. From there I then made this pillar all the way up to the top, and at the top there I built a new portal that after lighting and going back through did in fact link with the portal on top of the nether roof, so that was great. I then made my way back through the portal, and after getting to the other side I opened up my F3 coordinates to make sure that I was flying the right direction before I just took off. After making sure that I was facing south, I grabbed some firework rockets and started my journey. After not long, I came across this beach here where a ton of turtles just kind of randomly spawned in, so I decided to stop to look at them. However, when I landed, there were even more mobs than turtles. But I continued going and then found this beach here where there were even more turtles than the previous one. I don't know what the heck was going on. But while I was here, I decided that I may as well collect a little bit of sea kelp and then start breeding some of the turtles, which gave me the parrots and bats achievement, which is kind of crazy, 212 days in, and this is my first animal bred. Anyway, I then collected some of the eggs as they may have been useful for later. After collecting a decent amount, I continued my journey, collecting sugarcane along the way, just to craft some rockets. I also did at one point find a jungle temple that I stopped in, which got me pretty garbage loot. I mean, it's just a jungle temple, what can you expect? I did however go back and grab the bamboo, as I'd kind of wasted all of mine previously crafting it into scaffold. Now if you guys are avid SB737 watchers like me, you'd know that he's had great success finding ancient cities under the peak biomes. So I was flying around pretty much looking for the peak biomes, as I definitely wanted to find myself an ancient city in this video, which sadly, well, I guess you'll just see later. I did at one point come across these frogs here, which I didn't even know could spawn in normal swamps, to be honest. I thought they just spawn in mangroves. And also, by the way, these are really cool. Like, we can agree on that, right? These mobs are so cool. I'm so happy they were added to the game. But anyway, I just continued my journey, where I came across a couple of villages, as well as a mushroom biome, which, to be fair, is not much of a biome. It's just a tiny little island, like really, really tiny, honestly. Anyway, I marked down the coordinates of it and then continued going, also stopping at some villages and looting them, as well as some ruined portals and looting them too along the way. Occasionally, I would also make new nether portals that I would make my way through and then go ahead and mine up a bunch of quartz just to heal up my elytra, as I had no other real way of healing it. So after mining up all the quartz I needed to heal back my elytra to full, I made my way back through the portal and then mined it up and continued on my adventure. Also, I did at some point jump into some caves, hoping that I would find Deep Dark, but sadly I didn't. However, I did find a couple of diamonds though. Also, at one point I came across a jungle where there were two pandas really close and decided to breed them just so that I had them for the all mobs achievement later. I then continued flying around and found this pillager outpost, which in the chest I got my very first horn of this world, which made no sound at first because I don't really play with music or sounds in Minecraft, but after adjusting it, I did in fact hear the first horn of this world, so that was pretty cool. Also, I did in fact discover that there were two LAs trapped in this cage, so I made sure to mark down the coordinates of this place before continuing on. A little while later I spotted a cave that I flew down into where there was in fact Deep Dark, so I blew my horn to celebrate. Now although it wasn't an ancient city, I decided that I was still going to explore it as this was the first Deep Dark I had seen in this world. So sneaking very carefully around these things got me the Sneak 100 achievement, and I decided to mine up the Shrieker, which was a mistake as it activated the other Shrieker and scared the living daylights out of me because at the time I didn't actually know that you had to activate it 3 times to get a warden. So like I was really stressing right here, hoping that I wasn't gonna die. But after waiting around for a little bit and a warden didn't actually spawn, I decided that I was gonna use my Silk Touch hoe to mine up a couple of these sculpt blocks. And then I went ahead and explored the cave a little bit more just to make sure that there was in fact no ancient city, which sadly there wasn't. but that's fine for now. So I decided to make my way out of the cave again and continued on my adventure, where I kept on stopping at ruined portals and villages to loot them, which did eventually pay off, as when I stopped at this ruined portal, I opened the chest to get my very first notch apple of this series, which is great, and I mean pretty rare. It's pretty low chance to get it out of these chests. While on the adventure, I also collected myself a little bit of leather that I used to craft myself leather boots, and then placed down some powdered snow, which I then hopped on top of with the leather boots to give myself the light as a rabbit achievement while I had the snow freely accessible to me. From there I continued flying, and eventually, finally, after many days of flying, I finally found myself a peaks biome. So I went up to the top and decided that I was going to mine down on this piece of ice right here. So that's exactly what I did. I started mining down and eventually fell into some deep dark, which sadly once again was not an ancient city, but it was a deep dark. By the way, I know you guys can't really see too well here unless I drink a night vision. So I know that really stinks with the 1.19 update. I'm going to try and fix it in the next video by using like a gamma plugin or something, I don't know, but yeah, for now I'm really sorry about that. Anyway, I crafted myself a normal hoe that I used to mine up some of the skulk to heal my elytra, and then explored the cave a bit more to find that there was no ancient city, so I made my way back out and flew around a bit more until eventually I found even more peaks, where I saw these goats on top and decided that I was going to attempt to get myself another horn. However, after building this wall and standing around for a long time, the goats didn't even ram me, so I just continued flying. Eventually, after finding another peaks biome, I decided to use a different strategy of flying around the bottom to see if there was a cave that opened up. And there was a cave, so I decided to jump down into this cave that didn't go anywhere. So I kind of ditched that strategy and made my way back to the top of the mountain, where, I'll be honest with you guys, I didn't find an ancient city this video. I really tried. This was literally like 10 days of me flying around, which was like 3 hours straight of me flying, and I didn't find anything. So that really stinks, but yeah, I didn't find anything. Also, while standing here admiring these really cool peaks, this goat came along and decided to bump me off. So I decided to give him payback. Anyway, I decided from there to build myself a brand new portal that after lighting, I made my way back into the nether and then started the long journey of making my way back home. Obviously, this was much faster than the overworld, but still a couple thousand blocks. So, by the time I made my way back to my portal, this dang pig was waiting for me, so I made certain to kill him, and then made my way back through my portal and into my house, where I started putting away all the things that I had gathered on my long adventure, as well as putting my horn in my trophy room. After that, it was off to the inconsistent iron farm, which now once again is producing iron. I don't know what's wrong with this thing. But anyway, I grabbed some iron and some cobblestone, and went to craft myself a couple of pistons. However, I was kind of running low on redstone, so I made myself a couple of night vision potions, and then flew a couple thousand blocks away and jumped into some caves. I was kind of hoping that I would run into an ancient city here, which, sadly, I didn't, but that's fine. I got the redstone I needed, and by the time I was done, I had plenty of it. So, I very quickly made my way back over to my house, which didn't take me too long, as it was only a couple thousand blocks away. But as I got back over there, I also realized that I was going to need some quartz for the other redstone supplies I was going to be crafting. So, I made my way over to the nether and started collecting a bit of quartz. This took me a little while, but quartz isn't too bad to collect. So, I made my way back through my portal and into my house, where I quickly went ahead and got a good night's rest, before waking up the next day to jump down into my cave and collect even more stone, close enough to my beacon once again so that I could have the haze 2 effect. When I was done, I made my way back into my house and started crafting all the redstone supplies I was going to need. After that, I made my way over to the spawn chunks, where I decided to start clearing out a bit of an area, as I was going to be building a farm here. So I started laying down all the things that I was going to need. Now, what I'm actually building here is a very easy automatic sugarcane farm. This design isn't specifically by anyone, it's just a little easy farm with pistons and observers, so you could probably find a tutorial somewhere on YouTube. Anyway, it didn't take me long, about a day or two, and I fully constructed this thing here, which kind of looks alright, but I had an automatic sugarcane farm now. So anyway, I made my way back over to my house, and when I got there, I went ahead and grabbed myself some more gunpowder and crafted myself some more rockets, as I had just run out. Then I grabbed a shulker box and started gathering even more materials for the next farm I was going to be building. This again took me about a day or two, and by the time I was done, I put it all in a shulker box, gathered the shulker box, and then flew around my area a bit so that I could find a place to build this thing, and came to the decision that this area right next to my villager breeder, to the right of it, was going to be a good decision. So I started clearing out a bit of land around that area, and then I started laying down the glass for the first couple bits of the farm. And in the beginning I built this thing totally wrong, and it was like totally gonna collide with the wall. So I had to painfully tear down the glass, and then started constructing it again, and once again built it way too close to the wall and it was gonna collide. So I once again had to tear down all the glass, which was painful. But this time I was gonna make sure that it was gonna fit. So I cleared out a bunch more area of the grass here, and then started laying down the farm for the final time, making sure that this time it was actually gonna fit. I'm pretty certain this is a Shulker Craft design that I used, but I'll find the tutorial and leave it linked in the description for anyone who wants to check it out. But after collecting a couple of carrots so that I could start planting it, I just got to building the farm, so I guess just sit back, relax, and enjoy my time lapse. And there we have it, another brand new farm added to my area. For anyone who doesn't know, it's an automatic carrot and potato farm that'll come in very handy later. Anyway, after I was done building that, I made my way over to my new sugarcane farm to check on how much sugarcane it had produced, and it had produced nothing. Yeah, I was kind of shocked at the time. The only thing that I could think is that maybe the spawn chunk thing wasn't working as well as I thought, but I decided to give it a chance to see that it was in fact not working. So I made my way back over to my house, and then I started putting away all the things that I had been using over the last couple of days, which was a lot, as I had filled multiple shulker boxes and my inventory multiple times. From there, I then went to check on my carrots and potatoes, and it was already producing a decent amount, as it had only been like a day since I had built it. Then I decided that I was going to start my next massive project. So I decided that it was going to fit nicely next to my villager breeder over here, as it was a nice big flat area. However, it was still going to need a ton more flattening out though. But I decided that in the meantime I was going to start gathering all the resources I was going to need to build this thing. Now it's time for me to clear something up. For those of you who don't know, I have a TikTok, which is at VanillaDream87. You should definitely be following it. But anyway, I often get asked by the commenters whether I'm Afrikaans or South African. And yes, well, no, I'm not Afrikaans, but I am South African and I could speak a bit of Afrikaans. So I thought it'd be fun for this material gathering montage if I said all the materials I was gathering names in Afrikaans. So let's go. So I started off by growing myself a couple of bome and then chopping them down to get myself a little bit of hout. After that, I grabbed myself some keisteen and then a bit of rooi klip as well as a bit of yster that I then used to craft myself a bit of seiers. After that, I went and gathered more klip and made sure to collect all my boompies before they despawn. Then I crafted more seiers as well as a couple of hefbome and then grabbed a ladder box to put it all in. After that, I crafted some spaarvalhekke and grabbed a bit of geplafide diepblad and then crafted some diepblad baksteen trappe. I then made some diepbladstene, and just before I started building, I grabbed a bit of netherrack. Yeah, that's not really an Afrikaans word. So anyway, there was my Afrikaans. I don't speak it too often, but I hope you enjoyed it as I really enjoyed recording it. Anyway, back to the build. I started terraforming the land, which took me a couple of days, as I had to tear up a ton of land as well as filling in a lot of annoying little holes all over the place. So like I said, this did take me a couple of days, but eventually I was finally able to fill in the entire area, but not before running out of dirt and having to fly over to go start collecting more. While I was over there though, I did also check on my sugarcane farm and found out that it was still not producing any sugarcane. My iron farm was working pretty well though. So I crafted all my iron and made my way back over to my house, where I then sorted it into its own chest, and then went to collect all that grass that I was talking about, and continued placing. This took me a couple more days, but eventually I was happy with how flat the area was looking, and was ready to start building this thing. So I made a decision about where the center of this building was going to be, and then extended a short bit of road just so that it would connect. And then from there I went to pause, and wait for it, and there. So yeah, let me explain what happened here. If you guys have watched the first 2 episodes of this, then you know that what I do pretty often is I do something, but I forget to hit record on the recording software. So that's exactly what happened here. I pretty much just started laying out the build, but forgot to record. So as you can see here, I was very, very happy about that. But anyway, yeah, pretty much as you guys can see, I just laid out these 4 pillars here, and then started placing all these pistons in the holes where the villagers were going to be standing. But back to the build. I started taking out the redstone out of my shulker box, and then I went around placing the redstone in front of these pistons that'll later be activating them via levers. I made my way all the way around the build and placed all the redstone in, and now I can give you guys a better understanding of what I kind of planned out the first time when I forgot to hit record. So I'm planning to have like a roof here and kind of be bond. Just wait a second, let me show you guys like this. Here we go. Alright, so this is kind of what I'm planning. Having 2 roofs on the side like this, then having like a big pointy one in the middle, and then like 2 towers on the side here. I'm even thinking about putting a tower here in the middle too, with maybe a bit of a different looking roof from the other 2, but okay, definitely not like this. This looks absolutely garbage. Alright, get rid of that, but maybe just a plain roof. I don't know, we'll figure it out when we get there. Anyway, back to the build now. I made my way back inside, and then quickly finished off placing all the redstone behind these pistons. From there, I then made my way around placing chiseled stone bricks on top of the ends of the redstone, where I'd later put levers. Then I cleared out the floor of the area and made a border with spruce planks, as I want to put something different in the middle. I then took some spruce logs and made my way around placing them in between the chiseled stone bricks, as well as connecting them to the front like this. By the time I was done, I decided that I was going to strip them, as I thought it was going to look better, and yeah, I think it looks better. I then went around placing down all the levers on the chiseled stone bricks, and then I cleared out an area behind the pistons for where the zombies were going to be standing. For those of you who missed what I'm building here, which I don't know how you did that, it literally was in the intro of this video. But for those of you who did miss it, I'm building a villager trading hall. So the villagers will stand on top of the pistons, and then the zombies will be behind them. So whenever I flick the levers, the villagers will then be converted by the zombies, and I can reconvert them for cheaper trades. Anyway, I then made my way to the back of the pistons, where I had to place trapdoors on the back of each and every single one of them, which was a bit of a pain, but eventually I got into a bit of a rhythm at the end, as you'll see here. And then I went around placing these spruce logs in between where the villagers were going to be standing, just to add a bit of a gap. I also went down to where the zombies were and added these spruce planks to make sure the zombies couldn't walk in. Then from there I needed more wood, however as you can see from my chest, I'm completely out. So I went ahead and grabbed myself some saplings and some bone meal, and grew myself a couple of trees that I then very quickly cut down and got a ton of wood. I then went back to it and started placing down the wood. As you can see, I got into another good rhythm and connected it to the sides here as well, just so it looked better. I also went to go check on my carrots and potatoes, which by the way are doing really well. After that I collected my saplings to make sure they wouldn't despawn, and that added backs to where the villagers were going to be standing, just to close off the area a little bit. From there I placed all these blocks in between where the villagers were, and lit up down below where the zombies were going to be standing. Then I placed all the slabs on top of the blocks, and then I checked the tutorial and realized that I'd built the entire thing wrong. So I had to go and just tear up everything I just placed down again. But that's a boring process, so I'm not going to show you that. Let's just cut back to where we were, but the right way this time. Ah, there we go. That's better. So I got back to placing down all the slabs on top of these blocks in the right place this time. And then I went ahead and added a roof to where the villagers were going to be standing. So imagining that I'm a villager, this is where I'd be standing in here. Also, now that I'm done with the villager part, I want to fill in this floor here. So I decided to fly off and went ahead and collected myself a bunch of sand that I then took back home with me and started putting on to smelt in my 3 furnaces. Yes, very impressive. From there, I made my way back over to my automatic sugarcane farm and checked, and once again it is still not producing any sugarcane. So I decided to break my way in, where I then went ahead and mined up all my sugarcane that I then took back home with me and just placed next to some water there so that I'd have some sugarcane growing nearby. After that, I grabbed some weakness potions and some mine carts that I then took with me to find my mending villager. When it became nighttime, I put him into a minecart. I then pushed him over to my zombie, which after fixing the block then converted him, and I moved him into the back room that I dug out last video, where I then pushed him in and splashed him with a potion, then fed him the golden apple to start the curing process. After that, I cleaned up the rail that I had used and then reactivated my villager breeder, as I was gonna now start using villagers. I then also went to check whether the chunk loader I had built was working, and yeah, it wasn't working, but not a huge problem as I'm spending a lot of time in this area. Then from there I laid a very long railroad track all the way through my entire villager trading hall, and eventually after a ton of placing was able to connect it up. From there I went back to check on my mending villager, who was now trading name tags for 9 emeralds. However, that wasn't quite cheap enough for me, so I once again broke his lectern and then pushed him on the minecart towards the zombie, where he once again converted, and I then pushed him back, fed him a golden apple and splashed him, and started the conversion process too. While I was waiting for him to convert, I started pushing villagers into my trading hall, which went perfectly smoothly as you can imagine. Absolutely nothing went wrong. Hello? I said nothing went wrong. I said nothing went wrong. I said nothing went wrong. He deserved it. Anyway, I then got rid of all the slabs on top of these blocks, and decided that I was going to replace them with spruce logs, as I thought it would look better. From there, I added some trapdoors so that the villager next time would not be able to run out like he did the first time around. And once I was done with that, I checked on my mending villager, who was now trading name tags for 3 emeralds. Close, but not quite there. So I once again pushed him towards my zombie, but this time while pushing him back, I had a block open and he lit a flame, and then when I pushed him into the back room, I tried to save him, but no, he died. So this was an absolute pain, as I just spent a ton of time trying to convert him down, and now he was reset. Luckily, I did have the sharpness 4 villager though, so I went and got some emeralds from trading sticks with my fletchers, and then bought a ton of sharpness 4 books, until I had leveled him up all the way until he was selling name tags. Once he was now selling name tags, I put him on to convert after crafting a couple more weakness potions, until eventually he was selling name tags for 1 emerald. After that, I dug a tunnel from my villager trading hall to a close by zombie spawner I had found earlier while flattening out the area, and then sealed it all in to make sure that the zombies weren't gonna burn. From there I then made my way up to the nether roof, where I then started flying around and collecting myself a ton of brown mushrooms that I was gonna be needing. After collecting a bunch of them, I came home and grew myself a couple more trees that I then chopped down to collect myself a ton of wood, as I was also gonna need a lot more of that. I then went ahead and used a bunch of that wood to turn into sticks that I then traded with fletchers for emeralds, and then I used a whole lot more of it to add 4 more pillars to the outside of my building, and I think it's looking pretty cool. From there, I decided that I was going to try and decide on a wall design, so I filled in this wall with stone bricks to see how it looked, and it looked alright. So I decided that the other side was going to be spruce planks so that I could compare them, and after doing this, I was definitely able to decide that the spruce planks looked better. So I went ahead and quickly mined up all the stone bricks I just placed down, which was pretty satisfying as I was able to insta-mine them. From there, I then went and replaced that wall with spruce planks, and yeah, that definitely looks a lot better. Obviously, it's not going to be as plain as this, it's going to go up a bit higher, and I will add wall designs eventually when I've designed those wall designs. But anyway, I then went ahead and grew myself even more trees, as I had run out of wood building those massive pillars. I had now gotten plenty of wood, and started naming a couple of name tags so that I could get some zombies to kill my villagers. So I made my way down there, and then had to kill a bunch of mobs, as there were a ton of skeletons that spawned in a cave nearby. But then, I waited for some zombies to spawn, named them Feet Eater, and then got them to follow me down into the tunnels of my villager trading hall. After trapping them in there, I then went ahead and crafted a couple of bookshelves that I then used to craft a bunch of lecterns. After that, I started moving even more villagers in there, and this time it went just as swimmingly, arguably better. Look at this, this is just absolutely perfect. This is my absolute dream. I didn't kill him at all there, by the way. Also, the zombies were not going to work since I still had to move the villagers in, so I decided I was just going to get rid of them for now. With the next villager I moved in, I decided to fill in the back here with dirt so that he wouldn't fall into the back. However, this time I broke the piston. So I had to say goodbye to him and good night, and probably good riddance as well. But then, the next time I got a villager around, which took a little while, but eventually, when I punched him out of the minecart, he actually stayed in, and as soon as I placed down a lectern, he was able to take his job, and he gave me Bane of Arthropods 5 right away, which I decided to take as there's going to be plenty of spaces for villagers, and I'm just planning to get as many good books as I can, which is what I continue doing for the next couple of days, and eventually I even got Efficiency 5. However, I didn't have enough stuff to trade it to lock it in, so I went ahead and mined up some of the sugarcane that I had planted there earlier, and then turned it into paper just so that I could lock in the trade so that it would always be there. Now that I had moved in, call it one row of villages, I had to decide which villages were going to go over here. However, I was going to need them there first, so I moved them all over and decided that I was going to make them toolsmiths by putting smithing tables down in front of them. I continued doing this, moving all the villagers in, and eventually placed down all the smithing tables to turn them all into toolsmiths. From there, I started filling in the next row where the villagers were going to be standing with dirt, just so that they wouldn't escape here. And then I started moving the villagers in, which I was turning into farmers, and breaking their workstations until eventually they traded me carrots and potatoes. Also, I accidentally punched that guy, but it was fine because nobody noticed and he was trading me carrots and potatoes anyway. So I locked in those trades, and then I continued moving villagers in and trading with them until eventually I was able to get myself 8 farmers. I then went around the back and removed all the dirt from where I had placed it earlier, and then cleared up my inventory a little bit before buying more name tags and making my way over to my zombie spawner, which when I broke this torch, a zombie with full diamond armor spawned, which is pretty dang rare. So I very quickly lit everything up and killed the other zombie, as well as naming the diamond zombie so he wouldn't despawn, and then trapped him in. Now obviously for now his name is Feet Eater, but I'd love to see what you guys think his name should be. So right now scroll down and go leave a comment down below of what his name should be, and hopefully I'll name him in the next video. Anyway, from there I then got more zombies and named them, and then got them to follow me all the way around until my farmer. Sadly, they're a little bit weird with the trapdoors, so I was only able to get one in by my farmers, and the second one that I was trying to get in died by my thorns as he was attacking me too much. But eventually, after getting enough zombies in there, I'm pretty certain I got 2. Anyway, after getting those zombies in there, I went ahead and trapped them in, as well as trapping a couple more zombies and then closing them in. After that, I went to test it, and it took a while to convert my librarian, but it did eventually work, and I put him on to start healing again. From there, I went back over to my house and grabbed a shulker box that I then started putting a bunch of materials into, as I was going to be building an automatic brewer, as I was going to be needing a ton of weakness potions now that I had a zombie villager converter. However, with the materials, I didn't have nearly enough of the materials I was going to need to actually be brewing the potions. So I made my way up to the nether roof, where I flew around a bit, and then decided to fly back home, as although I was going up there to collect mushrooms, I knew of a much better way to do so. So I started making my way back over to the dark oak forest that I had been to previously, where I then took my Fortune 3 axe and started mining up some of the brown mushrooms, which got me a ton of mushrooms way quicker and was able to get over a stack in no time. Once I was happy with the amount of mushrooms I had gathered, I started making my way back over to my house, and when I got there, I went down into my cave. Cause you see, there's this mine shaft in my cave where I figured that I could be farming a couple of spider eyes. However, it was just getting really annoying with the poison and the spiders, and it was just not super efficient. So I decided that I was going to make a really easy cave spider spawner farm just because I could. So I grabbed a couple of the materials I was going to need, including a bunch of blocks, and then made my way down into the cave, where I lit up the entire mine shaft to make sure no other mobs were going to be spawning, and then dug out the area around the spider spawner. From there, I built a platform under it, and then dug out the rest of the mine shaft that was going to be in the way, and started building the floor where the water was going to go. This didn't take me too long, as it's pretty much just building a massive box. The only thing that was a little bit interesting was this collection system, but I mean, it's pretty simple. It didn't take me too long. After that, I placed in the water and mined up the necessary blocks before making myself just a little room where I could stand for the collection chamber. From there, I just had to place a roof on top of this thing, and I broke the torches as I go so it wouldn't be too difficult to break them later. Now it was done, so I made my way down into the collection area and stood there for a while waiting for spiders to spawn, which didn't take long before there were a ton of them, and I was slicing them all up to collect my spider eyes. Which, by the way, didn't take me long to get over a stack of them either. From there, I then made my way back out and over to my creeper farm, as I was also going to need a ton of gunpowder for these potions too. So I quickly went AFK for about another day, and got myself a ton of gunpowder, way more than was necessary. From there, I made my way back over to my house, and then I added it all to my shulker box with the materials I had been gathering, as well as collecting even more sugarcane, as sugar was another ingredient that I was going to need to make the fermented spider eyes so that I could make these potions. Once I had gathered enough from swamps and nearby places, I crafted a bunch of bottles that I then filled with water, which filled over 2 shulker boxes of water bottles. I decided that this area here in my house was going to be a great place to build this farm, as it was small and it was right in my house, very convenient too. This design is by Impulse SV and will definitely be linked in the description. It actually works really well and I'd highly recommend it. Anyway, after building the farm, I then went ahead and loaded up the chest with the water bottles, and then I went ahead and turned it on and stood by it just to make sure that it was in fact brewing the right potions. And yep, it was brewing the exact right thing, and as soon as it finished, it would all go into a chest down below and start filling up again to make more new ones. Now that I was happy that it was in fact working, I just did a very small bit of decorating, as it is in my house and I don't want it to look terrible. Also just dug a small hole in the side where I placed 2 trapdoors, so I'd be able to fill it up with water bottles again when it eventually does run empty. Also, since I was busy doing things in my house, I decided that I was going to decorate it up a little bit more. So one of the first things I decided to do is, with the 1.19 update, my house was looking a little bit dark. So I decided to get rid of some of the torches and start hanging some chains with some lanterns on over the top just to add more light, and it looks better than the torches. Also went ahead and added this crafting area in the middle of my chest and added some counters to my kitchen, making a brand new better looking brewing area. I also went ahead and made this little bed area by my crafting area just to make it look nice, and maybe went a little bit overboard with the lanterns, but I think it looks better than the torches. Also, while doing all that decorating, I had already gathered a full chest of weakness potions. From here, I went to go check on my carrots and potatoes, which, wow, oh my goodness, these are doing so well. I have so many potatoes and carrots already. I'd highly recommend building this farm in your world. Anyway, I then went over to my villagers and started trading with them a little bit, just so I could buy myself a couple of apples. From there, I then made my way over to the gold farm and went AFK there for a while to heal up my shovel. From there, I came home and crafted all my gold blocks into gold and then into golden apples. I then grabbed a bunch of those weakness potions that I've been brewing, and then went ahead and started flipping down all my farmers so that they would start converting. Now, although they did eventually convert, it took a really long time, and I actually had to go around the back and lure the zombies over to them myself. So, I knew that this wasn't going to really work for the future. I mean, look at this. I literally had to punch them out of the way of each other because they kept on getting stuck on the trapdoors. Anyway, when they were converted into zombie villagers, I started splashing them and feeding them golden apples so that they could reconvert into normal villagers. However, the zombies were a problem. So, while trying to fix it, I did eventually end up killing a couple of zombies, but then decided that what I was going to do is have 1 zombie for every 2 villagers, which took me a while to sort out and resulted in a couple of more zombie deaths. But this time, when I went to convert my villagers, they converted way faster, and this was definitely going to be the solution to my problem. So I went ahead and started splashing them with the potions and putting them back onto convert. But then I had to go buy more name tags, which I renamed, as I didn't have zombies by my librarian's villagers yet. So that's what I started doing. I started moving zombies in there, which didn't take me too long, as it's not too bad of a process when you know what you're doing. From there, I then closed them all in, and even decided to extend the exterior walls up a little bit more, just to make the area feel a little bit more closed in. From there, I started moving even more villagers into my trading hall, just because I had the space, and eventually, after a bit of work, moved in about another 8 villagers. Once I was done with that, as you can see, my villagers were getting pretty low and pretty close to being fully converted. So, I went over to my gold farm, where I then went AFK for a little while, as I had run out of gold at home. After a couple days of AFKing and hitting level 200, I went ahead and crafted all my gold into gold ingots, and then into gold blocks, which got me a decent bit more, as you can see here. I then mined up that shulker box and made my way back over to my portal, where there was a piglin child, so I just had to make sure to kill him, which luckily I have perfect aim, so I didn't miss him once. But in the end, it was obviously worth it. I mean, it was a piglin child. Anyway, I then made my way back over to my house and crafted a bunch of golden apples that I then took with me and continued converting my villagers. While I was waiting for my villagers to convert, I decided to place the rest of the spruce logs I had around the top of where the villagers were standing, and then I decided to strip them all, as I just thought it would match the rest of the build better. While I was still waiting for my villagers to convert, I also decided that I was going to extend this road out a little bit in the opposite direction, which didn't take me too long. I mean, I kinda know what I'm doing with this road by now. By this time, my villagers had converted, and they were trading 1 potato for 1 emerald, and then 1 carrot for 1 emerald too. So this is where something kinda went wrong. I put them back on to convert, which I'm not gonna spoil it now, but you'll definitely learn later this was a mistake. Anyway, I then put them back on to convert and went over to my iron farm, which was now absolutely full of iron, like overflowing. So I crafted it all into blocks and then took it home, where I sorted it into its own chest, as well as a couple of other things, such as my gold, and my diamonds, and even my coal too. I then grabbed a shulker box and made my way over to my sugarcane farm, where I then went ahead and tore the whole thing down, as now it was kind of useless. It took me pretty much the rest of the day, but at least that thing is gone now and I don't have to worry about it anymore. Now checking on my potatoes and carrots, I had an absolute ton of them, so I grabbed a whole lot of them and made my way over to my villagers, which, this is where you'll learn where the mistake came in. Look at this. 20, 16. This is crazy. like, I don't know what happened here. I don't know how this works in Minecraft's thinking. But yeah, I thought that maybe trading with them would reset it, but sadly it didn't. So I was kind of annoyed by this, but I wasn't sure what I was going to do just yet. I decided I was just going to give them a little bit of time to see, hopefully they would reset. So while I was thinking about what I was going to do, I decided to build a new automatic sugarcane farm. So I went ahead and filled in the area where my water had been previously, and then started placing down all the things I was going to need to build this. It's not super difficult, but it's also kind of weird to explain, so I'm not going to really show you guys too much of it. All you gotta know is that it's a Tango Tech design, and that it will be in the description if you want to build it for yourself. I'd highly recommend it. I think it works really well. Anyway, now that I've built the 4 modules as you can see here, I added a small storage system to it, and then covered the front with glass so no sugarcane would be flying off. From there, I just added some blocks to the outside and to the corners to make it look a bit better, and yeah, doesn't look too terrible. Probably do a bit more decorating in future, but for now, the villagers had still not reset. So I decided that I was just going to have to cure them again until they were down to the 2 and 1 again, and then I was going to just trade with them. Since I was going to have to wait for them to all cure up again, I extended the road out a little bit, and then I started placing down some netherrack to plan out where my new beacon was going to go. And there we have it. I've planned out the brand new area for where my brand new beacon is gonna go. By this time, my villagers had also been converted back down to the really cheap trades. So I went ahead and went over to my carrots and potatoes, where I grabbed a whole bunch of them, and then made my way back over to my villagers where I started trading, which already got me nearly 4 stacks right away. I then took those emeralds and started trading them with my toolsmiths, just so that I could level them up a bit, because as you'll see here, when they level up, they'll trade me 1 iron for 1 emerald. And in case you didn't know, I actually have a ton of iron. It was now thunderstorming again, so I went ahead and grabbed my channeling trident as well as my flint and steel, and then decided I was going to try and get a few more mob heads. Obviously, they're useless to me at the moment, but I think they're really cool. I had a couple failed attempts, like this one here for example, which actually ended up in me using a totem. But in the end, I was able to come back with 2 more zombie heads and another creeper head too. Now that I was done with that, I started gathering the materials that I was gonna need to build the final farm of this video. Also, while doing that, I was trading iron with my toolsmiths to level them up and just to get that trade going. When I was done collecting all the materials I needed for this farm, I started building it in the wrong place, and then I had to collect it all up and tear it all back down again. But then, once I was done with that, I built it again, and this time even further, but once again I built it in the wrong place and I had to go ahead and tear all of it back down. But this time I did in fact build it in the right place, and I just started piecing the farm together by following the tutorial. Now, if I thought the sugarcane farm was difficult to explain to you guys, this one is in a whole different ballpark. It's not even that difficult to build, but it's a little bit tricky to explain when you don't fully understand it. So if you want to build it, just follow the tutorial like I did. But anyway, what I'm building here is a really small automatic moss farm. Now that the farm was done though, there was something I needed. So I made my way to the nether to try and find it, but with the fog, it was near impossible. So eventually, I just gave up and relaunched my game in Optifine so that I wouldn't have the fog anymore. And this made it so much easier. I found the biome right away and I started collecting bone blocks. I did this for a couple of minutes and was able to collect myself a really decent amount of bone blocks. So I made my way back home where I accidentally nearly shot both of these pigmen. And then I turned it all into bone meal and started filling up the hoppers of my moss farm. And I got a really decent amount of bone meal, because even after all the hoppers were full, I was able to still pull a really decent amount in the chest. From there, I went ahead and turned the moss farm on, and right off the bat, it started working perfectly. The stone generator was breaking the moss, and the water was breaking all the things that would spawn on top of the moss, and it was all ending up perfectly in the chest down below. So this really was great. From here, I continue on trading with my villagers, which was going pretty smoothly, except for the fact that a decent amount of them had actually locked up their trades and weren't restocking anymore. So I decided that I was going to break all the composters of the ones who had locked up their trades, and then place them back down again, which actually worked surprisingly well, and didn't take long before a lot of them had actually started restocking, and I could now be trading with most, if not all, of my villagers. And now we cut to the simple life farmer. He walks around his lawn and digs little holes that he then places torches in. Nah, I'm kidding guys. But yeah, pretty much what I had planned to do here was to walk all the way around my area, digging these little holes, and then fill them in with torches to light up the entire thing. And that's where the moss farm comes in, because I would then cover it all up with moss carpet so it doesn't look so weird. However, this took me a really long time to do, so I'll just give you guys little progress updates. So I continued this very boring and painful process of digging these holes and placing the torches in, and all the while doing this, I was still trading with all my villagers to get me an absolute ton of emeralds. Now that I've dug a decent amount of these holes, I can fly up and show you how great this really looks. It just looks so good, and yeah, no, don't worry guys, I'm kidding. It'll look much better with the moss carpets. But anyway, I continued digging these holes and placing the torches until eventually I had placed the final torch, and then I put all the moss carpets on, until eventually I had placed the final moss carpet, and this is what it looks like. As you can see, it doesn't really make much of a difference during the day, but it will at night. I did at one point also make a trip to the nether, where I farmed a bit of magma cream that I then took home with me and used to convert my auto brewer from brewing automatic potions of weakness into brewing me fire resistance potions. When they were done brewing, I grabbed a bunch of them and took them with me to the nether, where I started flying over to the nether fortress where I always found the wither skeleton skulls. However, when I got to the exact coordinates and there was no fortress, it kinda made me pause my game and check the coordinates, only to find out that I had gone to negative 1500 instead of positive 1500. So yeah, I turned around, and this time it didn't actually take me too long to get there, now that I was flying in the right direction at least. So when I got there, I drank a fire resistance potion and went into my ender chest where I got my looting 3 sword and started farming wither skeleton skulls. Now you guys have seen this 100 times before, so I'm not really going to show you too much of it, as I know it's also really dark and tricky for you guys to see with this 1.19 update anyway. But anyway, it took me about 2 days of constant farming until eventually I got my last 2 wither skeleton skulls and was ready to head home. Also, for any one of you who are interested, this is the amount of wither skeletons I've killed in my world. Now that I was done with that, I then made my way back home on day 296 and headed through my portal, only to find out that it was already night time. So, I decided this was going to be the perfect time to show you how great this looks. Look at that, oh my goodness. That just looks so cool. I'll be honest, it took me a long time to do this, but I totally think it's worth it because at night it just looks absolutely awesome. Sheesh. Alright, well, anyway, let's get back to it. Now that I'm done admiring that, I just went to bed on day 96. And then woke up day 97 to go trading with my villagers for even more emeralds, which I then used a bunch of to buy myself a whole ton of food, as this is what I'm eating nowadays. I then turned the rest of my emeralds back into emerald blocks, and my goodness, I've got a lot of emerald blocks by now, nearly 6 stacks. From there, I grabbed all the things I was gonna need to craft my beacons, and jumped up on top of my roof to once again admire my area at night, as it just looks so cool. This glow just looks absolutely amazing. Anyway, the next 2 days I pretty much just spent down in the cave, where I went into the strip mine where I always go to kill the withers, where I then just dig out tunnels, spawn withers, and use that mining technique I showed you guys earlier, so that I could get myself a bunch of cobble deep slate, as I had kind of been running low. And I mean, I also got a decent amount of diamonds every now and again. This process pretty much just continued until the end of day 299, when I killed my last wither and collected up the nether star, as well as any other cobble deep slate lying around, as well as any diamonds that, I mean, just were lying around there. And on day 300, I made my way back out of the mines and into my house, where I pretty much just spent the first part of the day organizing all the things out of my shulker boxes into the chests. When I was done with that, I crafted my 4 beacons and grabbed all the emerald blocks I was gonna need. Then from there, I made my way outside and over to where I had planned to put my new beacon. So I built the entire pyramid, got my 4 beacons and placed them down, and stood back to see them all light. After that, I did also make sure to give them all powers so that they were useful in some way. And as the sun sets on this world, that, ladies and gentlemen, was 300 days in hardcore Minecraft. I really hope you all enjoyed it, and if you'd like to see more content from me in the future, please hit that subscribe button, and I will see you all soon. Bye.